No, this movie was PG-13, and they didn't even really swear in it. You're allowed to get one F word, my friend.
Yeah.
And they didn't even take it.
I was waiting for it the whole time.
I was waiting for it too. You should have not even been waiting for it. You thought this movie was R-rated.
See, that's what I thought. I'm like, where's that? I'm not joking. I'm not being that serious.
Hey, everyone.
And
welcome to Why Are You Still Here? What is it? The show?
Where we talk about anything we want, mostly movies. It's mostly movies.
Yeah. Fingers crossed we'll be we'll become like a mostly review channel at some point. And not that I don't want to talk about other stuff, but I want to get into movies early. Okay. You hearing me out there?
Get us some
movie studios.
Anyway, so
yeah,
today, everybody, we're going to be talking about our spoiler filled thoughts on the Batman, the movie that just came out, starring Robert Pattinson as Batman. Brandon, I thought this was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
And
so
we got to talk about how we both arrived at this conclusion, because we had a revelation about half an hour ago where our thoughts are pretty in line with the movie. Third act kind of falls short a little bit.
Yeah. So you saw the movie, I hope. Don't come and watch this if you haven't seen it, please.
Or do that. I don't care.
Don't do that. But if you do that, still like the video.
That's up to you.
And maybe comment or something. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so it's the Riddler. Obviously, he's murdering people, and there's fun to be had
in this one.
Yeah,
I particularly enjoyed the rat face eating.
That was pretty good. That was probably the furthest that a PG-13 rated movie could ever really go. And yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm gonna sound really stupid here, but I want this on camera. I don't even care. Is this movie PG-13?
Of course it is.
This is a really hard PG-13. This is what? You serious? I thought it was rated R the whole time.
Oh my God. We're going to lose all credibility right in that moment. Don't lump me into what's going on over here. Okay, people. There's never been an R-rated Batman movie that went to theaters.
Well,
the closest that we have to that, no. They won't. It's not going to make any money, unfortunately. So, kids have to be able to see this movie. It is Batman after all. And yeah, so the closest we got to that was either Joker, which is still in the same, it's the DC universe, or just the extended cut of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, which was R-rated.
Which I already have.
Right, but that didn't go to theaters. So Joker went to theaters, and that was, I guess that's the closest that we got to an R-rated Batman movie. So I showed this in the other video, but here's my ticket. I asked the guy for it. And no, bad Lucas. You can, for anybody out there that still wants to get a physical ticket, remember, all you have to do is just go to one of the machines, self-serving machines, self-kiosk, whatever you want to call it, and just put in the confirmation number. That's all you have to do. It prints out for you. And then you'll still get your physical ticket, which I love physical tickets, because I will never go and look back at previous emails I had from the theater or stuff on my account, whether it's Imagine or AMC or whatever, but I will look at these. So brings back memories.
Beautiful.
And then I got a comic book, right? Which is Batman The Long Halloween, which increased my expectations even more. My expectations were pretty much through the roof. And then they hand me The Long Halloween, which is one of my all-time favorite stories. And I had already heard that this movie was going to be heavily inspired by The Long Halloween. And it just wasn't, unfortunately. So that's part of where my displeasure comes from as well, if I am to be honest with you. So I was, it started off so promising. It's the first night it's Halloween in the movie.
Yes.
And so the movie starts off obviously with Robert Pattinson's, narration. And one of the greatest, coolest Batman things I've ever seen is those shadows. So we have to talk about that. So I was afraid of shadows at the beginning of this movie. It was insane. So the way that they shot it, where Robert Pattinson, it kind of makes it seem like his Batman can be anywhere at any time. And they show the dark street, the dark hallway, maybe a dark hallway, the dark alleyway. They show the dark doorways and all this kind of stuff, and all these criminals kind of looking over their shoulder at
it's cool because every
areas.
time they show the bat signal, the criminals are like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? It's well, of course you do. It's awesome.
Yep. So cool. That was so cool, because it was like, that is exactly how Batman should feel.
Even just like that opening
scary
scene,
like
when
that.
When you hear, and I'm gonna coin this term, the bat boots, because every time I would hear those they kind of looked like combat boots almost at some point when he was stomping around in them before, like that very first scene, and then it was like the Shape. You just slowly emerged from the shadows, and just the way he took down that whole group of people. I like how he kind of reminded me of Ben Affleck's Batman a little bit, how kind of moved like a little bit like a tank, not so like acrobatic. He seemed looming, threatening every time, like a Darth Vader type almost in a way. That's even his main theme sort of reminded me of the Imperial March slightly.
I'm happy that you brought that up, because
I'm first off, so I'm not stupid.
Michael Giacchino his score was fantastic, and I was not going to bring this up because I did not want to make it seem like I was insulting him, but you brought it up, and it sounds exactly like the Imperial March.
Okay, and so I'm glad
that was something I noticed during the second trailer of this movie. It's uncannily
what is it?
Close.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that.
Yeah, instead of boom, 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 like it's very, very close. It's, in fact, it reminds me of the Harry Potter song you used in that one video, because it's just off by like one note. This would be the royalty-free Imperial March right here. So it's awesome. Like, I liked it. It had that familiarity almost that a Batman theme should have, because you felt like you've heard it before, because you kind of have. But yes, that certainly had to be brought up, and I'm happy that you did. And so he certainly feels like a force of nature. He feels like he's somebody you should be afraid of. The way that it's set up, it does feel like he's everywhere at once. And, he says it himself, he can't be everywhere at once. He is he's a man, obviously. So he has to
but also
look at what
so for being
as threats are.
As scary and looming as he is, this threat to the criminals of Gotham, he at least still has that moral high ground too. And I thought maybe this might be like the first or I could be wrong, whatever. I thought maybe this might be like the first mainstream Batman movie where he ends up killing somebody because of how dark it is, in the trailers.
That already happened.
So anyway, I knew you would say something about it.
In
so
movies
I had to preface
you've
it
seen
that way.
So he kills people in Batman Returns, as well as Batman v Superman, which people had a cow about. Like, they're like, oh my God, Batman's killing people. And it's like, you know how many people he killed in the first two Batman movies? So yeah, it's not anything new. If
it's not a thing anymore that people complain about. I remember a lot of people.
Oh no, they do.
Arms about.
They do. Just people like to forget that he kills people in the first 2 Batman movies, so they act like it was such a big deal that he killed people in Batman v Superman. So it I don't know, it's Batman's comic book history has gone back and forth, and eventually they establish this code. He hasn't always had it. He used to like break people's necks and stuff, and it was very much so like it didn't matter, and then it started to matter, and then it got into like the pop culture consciousness with the Dark Knight trilogy, I think, because it was such a big deal in those movies. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool that they stuck to it though, that he won't even he was like, no guns, and then Gordon was like, that's your rule, not mine. But he still will use guns to take people and beat them with it, as we saw. So yeah, so okay, so that first scene in the crime scene, right, they really let that massively breathe, massively, to the point where you really feel like you're there with them, during the investigation of this scene. And that was kind of cool, because you really felt like how ridiculous it is that somebody's dressing up like a bat around all these normal people, and they're all like sort of staring at him, and it almost feels like somebody in like cosplay, like somebody that is just wearing a costume in the middle of an active crime scene. Like that's almost what it felt like, which I kind of liked. It certainly felt weird for it to be that to be happening in a Batman movie, but also it's like, well, I guess that's how it would feel in real life.
Is this when you're talking about the part when he's walking around? Okay, yeah, at the very beginning of the
very beginning. Yeah, he's just like walking around looking at everything and looking at people and stuff. And
where they didn't even want to admit him to the crime scene or whatever. This is a crime scene, not for fucking freaks. He's with me. Why are you with this freak, Jim?
It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, Jim? Whatever. Yeah. So that was interesting. And you see him like walk over to blood on the ground and then walk away from it. And then one of the crime scene investigators is like notices it after he walks away from it, is like jumping to the ground to start taking pictures and stuff. So yeah, that was cool. He certainly is the world's greatest detective in this movie. That is certainly something that they got very, very, very right. It's almost like, as a viewer though, you can feel Batman's overbearing presence over this entire movie. Like you really can be anywhere. And the fact that he is Batman for 85% of this movie, 90% of this movie as well, like he almost never takes the costume off. Even when he does take it off, he tends to still cover his face with like that scarf and the eyeliner.
Yeah, I liked his little when he would run around with like his backpack on toward the end of the movie and just look like an average everyday person, but still be kicking fucking ass.
Right.
One of the very few times where he wasn't in the bat suit, I guess.
Yeah. So that leads me into actually one of my first issues, and I really don't have a lot of issues with this movie. It's just that the few that I do have kind of like makes me go,
to you.
They become more glaring. And that is that if this version of Bruce Wayne existed in the real world, it would take all of 1 week for people to go, you're Batman, aren't you? Yeah,
I
you're
wondered
Batman.
why he wasn't doing a little bit more to conceal who he was.
He didn't even care.
He didn't even change his voice half the time.
He didn't change his voice most of the time. He just sort of kind of like whispered the exact same way he talked as Bruce Wayne. Let's talk about that.
Sorry.
As Bruce Wayne, also he looks like like the long hair, and he might be dressed up, but it didn't look particularly nice.
Like when whatever Alfred was like, "You're still a Wayne. You're gonna wear your cufflinks from your father."
Yeah,
I don't know why I gave him the Michael Caine treatment with that one, but whatever.
I don't know. And he doesn't even care about his factory, his company, even like closing. Like he doesn't care. He's like, Alfred, that's not what I care about. That whole.
Doesn't he only make a public appearance as Bruce Wayne like once in this movie? I mean, like a public appearance where
A
he
public
goes out.
appearance, yes, just the funeral.
That, and then when he goes to the club toward the end of the movie, like as Bruce Wayne. I think that's like it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which that was cool. He enters that club 3 times in 3 different ways. Yeah.
And by the way, I have to say this, I forgot about it completely, and I don't think I would have remembered it had we not mentioned the club part. I liked the Tweedledee and Tweedledum as the 2 bouncers at the club that looked kind of the same, and they were always just joking with each other about like either Batman or Bruce Wayne. I always got a chuckle out of those 2. Everybody in the audience kind of laughed at
them.
You
know that Tweedledee and Tweedledum are also Batman characters.
Are they really?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so that's kind of funny then.
They work for just, the Mad Hatter.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a reference to it. Could have been.
Because that's just what I thought of. They kind of looked similar, you know, and they were both.
Oh, they were. I think they were twins. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I brought the club. I just want to throw that out there. So cool, little Mad Hatter reference if that was the case. I'm glad I picked up on a few things in this movie then.
I'm going to throw this in now. Otherwise, I'm going to completely forget it. Nobody else that I've seen is mentioning this really either. There's a Hush reference. In fact, there's several Hush references, and you might not know, but Hush is a supervillain in the Batman universe that we have never seen on screen. And that's pretty exciting. So Tommy Elliott is like an old family friend of Bruce Wayne, and he ends up becoming obsessed with Bruce Wayne and sort of like cutting up people's faces that he's murdered to construct a Bruce Wayne mask for himself. So he just really wants to be Bruce Wayne kind of thing. And before that happens, he's sort of like, his face is wrapped up in bandages, and he has like an overcoat and has a gun and stuff, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it justice, but Hush is a badass character. People can go look it up if they choose, or go read Batman Hush. It's a great graphic novel. And but there was multiple references. They mention Thomas Elliott in this movie, and they also, Riddler puts the word hush up on the screen when they're watching the video on his computer. So I was like, I see what you did there, and I'm liking it. So if that's the villain of the second movie, then I'm on board. And it probably will be, because that's total murder mystery. And if that's what Matt Reeves wants to continue doing, then that's probably what he'll do. We talked about this before in the spoiler-free review. This movie it focuses and just zeroes in on the whole, world's greatest detective aspect of the story. And absolutely, that's what Batman is. 100%. That's Batman to a T. But Batman also has other aspects to his character as well. He is still everything else that we have seen in the Batman movies. And this movie does not have a whole lot of action in it. Not that I wanted it to be a super action-packed movie, but I don't know. It just, I kept hoping for something more, like a bigger set piece to happen in this movie. And it just never really did. There were some scenes of action, and they were over pretty quickly. Basically, what I really wanted was like my warehouse scene from Batman v Superman. Like, that's such an amazing scene that sticks out in the mind of everybody who's ever watched that movie. And this movie doesn't have a moment like that, or even close, really. So it's just, I don't know. I don't want to like shit on
you could call it here. The charges breaking the dams on the city in the third act, but you hate the third act so much that your judgment is clouded. I enjoyed 2/3 of it. We got to talk about how we both arrived at this conclusion, because we had a revelation about half an hour ago where our thoughts are pretty in line with the movie. Third act kind of falls short a little bit, but you hate the third act so much that your judgment is clouded.
Yeah, I don't think anybody liked that specific part of it, though. I mean, most people that
I thought it was a cool idea to flood Gotham. Personally,
what?
It just came out of nowhere. It was like the movie was done. It was over. And
well, the movie is about 30 minutes too long. And I like long movies. I'm not gonna lie. We talk about series, people binge watching a 6 hour, 6 hours worth of 2 seasons in one day, but won't sit through a 3-hour movie. This movie was a little bit too long. I'm not gonna lie. And I had a feeling that it was gonna be too long.
Too long and then not long enough in some aspects. So I didn't want it any longer, trust me, but it was like
my ass was starting to hurt so bad toward the end of that fucking movie.
And you got to sit in a recliner.
So I can only imagine how bad it was for you. I'm sorry. Because that was uncomfortable
toward my back end of the movie. And neck were destroyed. You also have to kind of like hold yourself the entire time so you don't fall on the person next to you. So it's very, very draining. But it's I certainly don't hate the third act of the movie. I just don't like it, and it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, and the movie almost comes to it like climaxes almost. It gets to a point where it's like ends, and then it goes, just kidding, and then it kind of like ends again, and then it goes, just kidding, and then it finally ends for real, and it was like, I don't know. I was kind of like, I was done with it for a little while before that happened. And some people are saying that this movie doesn't seem like anything could be removed from it. I can name some things that can be removed from this movie. A good amount of that ending. And also, you didn't have to shoehorn in the fact that Carmine Falcone is Selina's dad. I'm sorry. It wasn't needed. And it's not even something that is necessarily comic book accurate, because it's been hinted at in the comic books, but it has never been, just blatantly said. It was just not needed, in my opinion. Some other people might feel differently. I didn't think it was needed. And it reminded me of Batman and Robin, where it's like, they're like, well, we don't want to have Barbara be Jim Gordon's daughter, so it's going to be Alfred's niece. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd like to help Batman and Robin.
I anticipated you would, and took the liberty to create something in your size.
Suit me up, Uncle Alfred.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alfred's niece, that's fine. That's Batgirl. Like it almost was like creating familial connections when they didn't need that in this movie. Obviously, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's what I thought. I need to talk about something good. So Colin Farrell, obviously, he stole the show as the Penguin. And Lucas didn't even know that it was Colin Farrell.
I've said this story about 6 times since we've started. So let me see if I can muster up the fucking strength to say this with the same amount of vigor